we got shit to talk about. No gloves, fuck the green screen, hair's half done, and also fuck the mask. As you know, there's a lot of fucking shit going on in this country, and honestly, makes me sick. But I'm not normally one to talk about social issues or politics, mainly just because it's out of my comfort zone and things I'm not fully educated on, where I feel like I have the ability or confidence enough to speak on it. However, I think I may have found a way, and we're going to talk about it. So I'm just going to read this word for word. I did post this earlier in the week, so if you've already read it, it's this blog post that I posted. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you, appreciate it. And either just tab out if you're watching this, you can work on other things, but most importantly, just listen. Let's talk about race from someone who normally doesn't. I have a hot take. Racism is bad. Shocker, I know. Another hot take. Killing, murder is also bad. Crowd goes wild. Thank you. Please hold your applause. I normally sit quiet when it comes to social issues and politics because I find it impossible to change people's minds, so why waste our time engaging in meaningless discussion? I typically operate under the philosophy of, as long as I treat others well, that's all I can control, just keep it moving. However, the other night, it hit me. What's happening isn't a social or political issue. It's a mindset one. A sick, twisted mindset issue. And if you know anything about me, you know that my head is my superpower, and what I'm trying to accomplish here on this channel, this brand, is along the same plane. So with that being said, I need to step up. Sub me in, coach, let's go. Racism does not come from one political party or another. It comes in all shapes and sizes. And being against racism doesn't make you one or the other. Being against hate and racism is simply being against the brutally unfair treatment of others. Now, let me drop a bombshell on you. Do you remember when you were a kid and you wanted to go to McDonald's, so you kindly asked your parents to take you there? They said no. You now had two choices. You could pout and accept your no, or you could crank that shit up by a million and throw a temper tantrum. More often than not, when you threw the temper tantrum, you got what you wanted. Why? Because your parents wanted to shut you up. In 2016, you told Colin Kaepernick to stop peacefully protesting. And 4 years later, nothing has changed. The riots you're seeing, the protests in the streets, are the temper tantrum. I too was initially uneasy about the riots, and to a degree, I still am. We'll talk about that later. But then you realize that you need to crank it up several notches because you were ignored the first time. To quote Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins, quote, "People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy." Then, it also hit me. You know when you wrecked a car and your parents told you, "Thank God no one was hurt. We can replace the car, but we can't replace you"? Anything that is being destroyed right now can be replaced in one way or another. You cannot replace George Floyd or hundreds of other black men and women who have senselessly lost their lives. If you know me, you know I'm the king of logical thinking. It's my foundation, it's my North Star, it's my it's my way of thinking. Everything that I just said in the past 3 paragraphs have undeniably been a logical progression of events. A clear path from point A to point B with clear reasons why this is the case. Admittedly, it took me a while to sort out my thoughts, lay out the situation, and figure out how to advance. I'm not going to tell you to donate or flood the streets or anything like that. Instead, I simply ask you that you are willing to dive deeper, question yourself, question others, and engage in conversation. You know, the way I try and do things here. Peace and love, Mike, aka the Medalist. So let's talk about it. In that, I set 4 different traps intentionally. Number 1, I did not use the word cop, police, or cops at all. I have friends and family who serve. I'm grateful for their service, and I understand that not all cops are bad. Well, it's pure numbers. There's no discussion here. Also, unironically, I got into a car accident yesterday, and shout out to the 2 officers who helped ease the situation. Appreciate you. Next trap number 2. Let's, and just for my own sake, I am going to pull this up because I did write these out. Hang on one moment. Where was it? Because I sent them last night. Thank you. Number 2. I specifically removed social and political stances out of the equation. I made it a matter of life and death, a mindset. By doing this, once the opposition starts bringing up those things, either social or political, it immediately pins them from missing the point entirely, which means they're a lost cause. Save your breath. Number 3. I pinned any opposition again when bringing up since how you told Kaepernick to fuck off, people have no choice but to take it to extreme measures, forcing the opposition to pick a side. Either you respect peaceful protests, or you respect the violent ones. You can't hate both. The final trap I set was when I distinctively said at the end, quote, I'm not going to tell you to donate, flood the streets, or anything. All I ask is that you dive deeper, question yourself and others, and engage in conversation. By outlining what I'm doing in ways that I think could help improve the situation, it counters anytime the opposition tries to say things like, I don't see you in the streets, I don't see you doing blank, showing again they missed the point. And that is how you set 4 different traps for people who are actually paying attention and people who are not. Again, check fucking make. So, a little bit more on this, just so I can get some more thoughts on. I'm currently trying to figure out if there's a difference between understanding something and condemning it. That's my big thing that I'm still trying to untangle. I understand the riots, like the burning of cars, the destruction. It makes sense. And it makes sense in the fact that when I want to pull it up, but I don't. I'm going to paraphrase here. it here. I was on this after I discussed this with a few different people, and my friend Dylan made a really good point. And it basically comes down to the fact that when you haven't been heard, and it does speak to what I said in my writing, when you haven't been heard, you have to crank that up. Like, you have to amplify the situation. And when it's been repeatedly, done for hundreds of years and you're still not heard, like, what other choice do you have? And so that's like that's the part where it's I understand the anger, I understand the frustrations. I mean, shit, last night, 2 nights ago, I was literally in my car crying, just because it's like, it's what else do you want them to do? The black community has been begging for this for years. And this should have been over well before, 2016, but especially in 2016, this shit should have been a wrap. And we still aren't there. We're not even fucking close. But back to my point, I'm still trying to figure out if there's a difference between understanding a riot, understanding, the mass destruction, while also not condemning it. Because nobody wants to see communities burned or things like that. And like I said, everything that is being burned can be replaced. And it is a bunch of, probably, people have said they're different plants, or it's just people giving them an excuse to act out this way. So you're then turning the protest into something that it's not. And that's where I'm still just really trying to unfold and tangle, where is my exact stance on the riots. Peaceful protests, obviously, that's amazing and that's incredible, and some of the videos that have come out have been insane, and insanely positive, should I say, and also insanely negative, but another point for another day. But then it's, it's all the extra baggage. How do you process that? Is that right? Is that wrong? And obviously 2 rights don't make a wrong, and it's complicated. Shocking, I know, right? This shit's complicated. Another point that I think is really important to make, though, and it does kind of stem off from that, if you are more mad about the riots than the actual murder of George Floyd and the hundreds of others who have come before him, that feels like an issue to me. And it's just as simple as you can't replace a life. I don't know what else to say. And more stuff. See, I've been firing off some thoughts left and right to people recently, and I'm just really just trying to organize everything now. And I know this is rambly. I apologize. Thanks for sticking with me. I do think this is important though. As I mentioned in my piece, I'm not someone to talk about social issues or political issues, and mainly, and this is just my personal belief, because I would rather take change into my own hands. Like what I'm doing here, I want to impact the world my way. I don't want to leave it up to some fucking person I elected. I don't give a shit, right? I want to make change my way. So, you know, this is in a roundabout way, it speaks to what I'm trying to do here. You know, trying to create positive change, better your life, better other people's lives, just by fucking dressing up as a fucking superhero. Who knows, man? But I do believe that this instance in particular is interesting, because I've seen other people make this note, and I made an observation out from myself and other people as well. This time feels different for a very weird way. And I am going to pull this back up, but I can start talking about 2 reasons that I remember off the top of my head. The first one is my fear of death. I've talked about this before on my channel. It's one of my earlier videos. It's called The Fear of Death. I think that's what I called it. Pretty obvious, but it's there. You can look for it. Dude, dying is legitimately my biggest fear. Like, there is nothing else that comes close. And so when you just see life taken away like that, like so soon and so fast and so real, like that's gonna fucking shake you. And so I like just seeing that, you know, cause sure, you experience death in a video game, you experience death on a TV show or a movie, but only does death actually affect you until you actually, like, I don't know, just, it means more when you actually see it in real life, right? It's why funerals are so sad. That's just, I don't need to say this, like it's dead, it's final, like it's done. You get one life, and that's just it, right? So seeing that, right? The other reason why I thought it was really important for me to write what I wrote and be very outspoken about these things now is that what I set out to do here, specifically with this, forces me to heighten my standards. And that's not to say that my standards were low before, but what it means is I need to hold myself accountable. I need to hold people around me accountable, because you can't pretend to be a superhero and have low standards, low level of accountability, if that makes sense, right? A superhero is supposed to stand for something more, something bigger. And so because of that, the standards, the stakes, everything else has to go up with it. You know, I can't just kick my feet up and be like, you know, woe is me, or throw pity parties or things like that. Like, we have to hold ourselves accountable because of what I'm trying to do here. Third, I already talked about it. This should have been solved 4 years ago, but you didn't want to listen. I don't have to get into that. It's pretty simple. And then number 4, and this is what I really think is the big one as to why this one feels different. Because of how painfully obvious the murder was, right? Like, this was so clear, so cut and dry, that like, yo, like, George Floyd was murdered. Like, there's video proof, multiple witnesses, the video itself is just damning, right? So what the fuck are we doing? At what point is it where we need to, everyone, especially people in power, step up and be like, yeah, he was murdered. Like, we need, like, something has to change. And so I do feel like, because of how painfully obvious this case in particular was, I feel like it does speak more volumes, just because there's no way to like point and be like, like what happened before? Like, no, like, it doesn't matter. Like, he was killed. Cut and dry. That's it. End of discussion. I'm trying to think of what else. I do have a lot of thoughts, and I am still trying to work through and process them and things like that, as a lot of people are. I also think this is important to note that as someone who grew up in a very, in white America, we'll call it, like just like, Midwest, like white community, things like that. When I grew up, I didn't have a whole lot of experiences with black people. And then I went to school in the middle of the city, in the middle of Akron, largely black population, largely black campus. And that's obviously going to change things a lot. And I am really grateful for that experience, because what that allowed me to do was that allowed me to see a side of the country, a side of the population that I wouldn't have seen previously. And I do think that's where, that's when the gears start clicking, especially in college, where that is such a critical time, and maybe something that I didn't fully appreciate in the moment, admittedly, but something that I'm glad I can reflect on now and be like, hey, I understand like where you're coming from for this and on this angle, because I don't know, you just get it because you are able to see that other side. And that brings me to another excellent point. Jack Harlow made this point, and it was something that was in the back of my head, but I never really found the words for it until I watched his video of it. If you're like me and you grew up around basketball and you grew up around, sports, which is for the most part predominantly black or increasingly becoming predominantly black, if you listen to hip hop, rap, if your favorite artist is Drake, J. Cole, Travis Scott, doesn't matter, right? I'm going down the list. If you fuck with black culture, like fashion, whatever the case, rap, sports, fashion, if you fuck with black culture and you ain't about this movement, Black Lives Matter, or anything like that, what's going on? That to me is a very funny question, but also a very, look back and be like, oh, I see you. But I see you in the sense of this doesn't add up. This is, I don't want to say it's clear because maybe this part isn't in particular because it might not be something that you think about. But to me, it's like you're either with the shits or you aren't. Like you're either all the way in or you're all the way out. And it was just a really, I don't know, it was a very interesting way to look at it. And like I said, it was maybe a thought that I had in the back of my head, but watching Harlow's video, that definitely brought it to the forefront. I'm like, yep, that makes a whole lot of sense, and I'm glad you said that because maybe it got through to one or two people. I know this video was rambly, and I probably still have a lot of thoughts, and there are things that I still want to say. Most importantly, I'm probably going to get things wrong here. And I feel confident saying that. I don't want to get things wrong, but odds are it's probably going to happen. Do what you can. Do what you can and do what you feel comfortable doing. So if you feel comfortable going out and protesting, by all means do it. If you need to just stay in and either donate to different bail funds, go do that. If you want to stay in and ask questions and question people around you and find out their opinions and just talk to them about issues like this, go do that. If you want to read up more on cases and you want to read up more on things you can do to help or what other people are doing to help, you do that. One of my favorite things that somebody suggested was if you don't feel comfortable protesting but you still want to be out there, go donate supplies to protesters and then you can just leave. But at least you're doing something then to help the cause. I think that's it. Final thought. Love, not hate. What side of history do you want to be on? That's a really, really interesting point that Gary Vee made, and I was like, ooh, kind of like that. And then lastly, I don't know, just stay safe. Stay safe. Shit is in shambles. I get it. It's a nightmare. Let's just call it what it is. It's a nightmare. We shouldn't be in this position. It should have been solved long before then. Keep on fighting. And the black brothers and sisters, we're with you. We support you. And hopefully we can make a change together.